Hey guys, before we dive into the show, I wanted to tell you about the perfect trailer cue blueprint, which is 100% free, and you can download it right now over at thetrailermusicschool.com/blueprint. Now, this blueprint will help you to completely understand the structure of trailer music, how to build tracks that will be more licensable and have more impact and capture the right people's attention. So whenever you start writing a cue, make sure you've got this blueprint to hand and you can use it to help speed up your process, feel more confident that you've crafted a well-structured trailer cue before you send it off to that publisher or editor or supervisor. Okay, let's get into the episode. Hey guys, you've heard it from me so many times about how awesome the Protégé course is. So I thought it was probably best for you to hear from some of our students.
I went into the Protégé course with a pretty unhealthy amount of insecurity about the music I was writing at the time, struggling to structure tracks, to finish them on a regular basis.
We're going to have a bunch of people basically working in the industry get briefs every week, and then we publish them. I was like, what? That sounds like insane. I've never heard of any other people doing that sort of thing, like actually like mentoring people on like the level of like, no, we're doing it for an entire year. Yeah, that's why I think the Protégé thing is just amazing, because it's targeted. It's, okay, we want this type of music for this type of application. Let's do it. And then, okay, here's where you fell short, here's where you succeeded, and it's just amazing.
I feel like I've learned so much and improved so much in my production skills. I've gotten better at percussion and better at my capacity to write tracks quicker has improved, and I've gotten better at properly responding to feedback, and I feel like now there is more of a future for me in the library world than there was before I started.
It's definitely a course that I would recommend doing. There are so many courses out there, but this one really hammers home on how to write to brief, how to write quickly, and how to write expertly as well. Honestly, the videos are very user-friendly, they're very engaging, and you get to have breakdowns of some of Richard's most successful tracks or Elephant Music's most successful tracks, which has been really useful as well. So I thoroughly recommend to dive right in.
Protégé was one of the best investments that I ever made in my career. It did level up my game, and not just in skill, but also in my confidence. It just made me a more professional composer and a better composer.
But the course did exactly what it intended to do, in that it kind of demystified the whole composition process, taught me a bunch of good habits. And I suppose most importantly, and what I'm the most grateful for, is the fact that it actually helped me to really enjoy writing music again.
There you have it, guys. We are opening our doors for applications for the 21-22 masterclass year with Protégé.school. Go to protégé.tiny.us/apply. That's protégé.tiny.us/apply to start your application.
One man, one community. In the Trailer Music School's monthly group call. Welcome to the Trailer Music Composers Podcast.
Hey guys, welcome to another session of the Trailer Music Composers Podcast. As you can hear, my voice has gone a bit funny. I've had a bit of a cold this week and it's made me go a bit it's made me go a bit geezer, ain't it? I've gone through several stages. I've gone through the Whispering Man, through to Barry White, and now I'm currently somewhere at Frank Butcher for any of you, or maybe just an extra in a Guy Ritchie movie. Anyway, I digress. I have something very, very exciting for you this week. So I've been kind of exploring some new avenues with the podcast, because as much as I love talking to myself, because I'm very, very funny, it's a bit of a lonely tread to be taking. So I obviously have enlisted the help of Cody Still and Kieran Birch to bring in a bit of banter. And this week, I'm going to be unveiling the monthly calls I do within the Trailer Music School. So it's part of the community. I answer questions for the students, and I do some feedback sessions on some of their tracks. And it's just great fun. For me, it's really nice to see the faces and see and speak to the people within the training music school, and see the difference that the courses and I'm making. Now, I'm not just doing this as like a, hey, look at the school, isn't it great? Because I'm not. I'm doing it partly because it's quite hard to put out content once a week, full disclosure. Secondary, I felt like it would be really nice for you, firstly, to hear the questions that are being asked, because they're quite varied. They're not just about trailer music. They're about lifestyle, productivity, you name it. I have young kids, so a lot of the questions involved are like, how do you deal with working and having young kids at home? I really enjoy them, obviously, and the people who turn up to them, they really enjoy them too. I get a lot of positive feedback. And speaking of feedback, the other section of the call is me delivering feedback on people's work. So we set out, as part of the community, we give out monthly briefs, not pants, but briefs, where we say, like a professional brief, there you go, you do this. And they submit some tracks, and we select like a few tracks for me to review. Good ones, well, they're pretty much all good, They're not all like the ones that have smashed the brief. Sometimes it's appropriate to talk about the ones that have missed the brief. Sometimes it's appropriate to talk about the ones that completely missed the brief, because it doesn't necessarily mean the track is bad. And most tracks go through a process of feedback when you're working with a publisher. Or even on customs, you will be dealing with a lot of feedback because of the amount of people involved in the feedback process and the chain. So it's getting these composers used to not only putting the learning that they have from the school's courses into practice, but then putting that into practice again within a brief setting, within a professional setting. Because I think it's really important, I did almost all of my learning on the job through professional briefs. And I missed the mark more times than I care to admit. But I like to think that has given me a better grasp on when composers are hitting it and when composers are not. But if anything, it's just a chance for me to show you guys the standard of the work that's being produced in the training music school. I mean, it's just lovely, really creative work, brilliantly produced. It's just great, oftentimes I'm just like, yeah, this is awesome, you rock, yay, which isn't necessarily helpful, but sometimes it's nice to have that type of feedback. I love it when I get feedback that's just like, this track is awesome, approved. That makes my day, so it's nice for me to reciprocate. Anyway, enough rambling, I think. Let's dive in straight into the call. Straight into the call. I hope you guys enjoy it. So for those people listening to this, this is the. I should probably talk about this. This is going live on the podcast, isn't it? This is the Training Music School's monthly group call where we answer. Well, I say we. I answer questions, and then we review some tracks. And I'm looking at a screen of very happy people right now. Well, I assume to be happy anyway. Right. Okay. Espen is going to kick us off with some questions.
Yeah. Maybe I'll just start with Minko. You had a lot of questions. Here we go. On June 28th, my ambient album Music for Sleeping Boys being released. Because it is inspired by the birth of our son Simon, I wanted to have it released under my own name. I noticed in your newsletter you use several different names for different music. Would you recommend this for everybody? One name per genre?
Yeah, that's entirely up to you. I was actually having a chat with Guy Jones about this, because you could do the Radiohead and just each new album be like a completely different spin on the last. There's no reason why you shouldn't be that. The reason why I do it is because my name isn't actually Richard Schreiber. My name is Richard Prynne. Richard Schreiber was created as a trailer music pseudonym because Richard Prynne was doing lots of ads, and there was a complication with exclusivity. So I created the second name, which is my wife's maiden name, Schreiber. And I've just started rolling with that So I was doing Richard Schreiber. Well, no, I wasn't doing him. That's awful. I was doing my music as Richard Schreiber. And obviously, the editors, the supervisors in LA and in London, they start to understand when they hear Richard Schreiber, they're going to hear this type of music. So I thought it's probably going to be confusing for them if Richard Schreiber then starts releasing ambient music, which he can do. You know, I do it, but I just kept that as an aside. I didn't want to kind of dilute the brand, as it were. And I've just rolled with that now. I have Zach Rivers. I obviously have my actual name, Richard Prynne. You don't have to do it. It really depends on what the purpose of the moniker is. For me, it was a professional thing just because Richard Schreiber is so closely linked with certain type of music and specifically trailer music. Because of the trailer music school, we have Protege. The name Richard Schreiber is trailer stuff, basically. So, and I've also earmarked Richard Schreiber for the day when I finally release some of my own commercial epic music, which I keep doing it, and then I show Vic, and he's like, "Great, let's release it on Elephant." And I go, "Oh, okay, okay, let's do that." So yeah, you don't have to if you don't want to. I just quite like the idea. Also, one of my personal heroes, Keith Kenneth, which you guys should know, I've referenced him quite a lot. He writes under his real name, Keith Kenneth, but he also writes under the moniker Helios as ambient electronica. He also writes under the moniker of Goldmund for solo ambient piano. He also writes under the moniker of Mint Julep with his wife, which is like shoegaze music. He does have another moniker, but I can't remember what it is. It's like children's music for like story time. In a similar vein, he had kids. He wanted to write some children's music.
Since you're doing a lot of different stuff, would you say your everyday writing something schedule is different now than it was 2 years ago?
My everyday schedule, yeah, it's very, very different because obviously 2 years ago I didn't have Protege or Blue Pearl or a million other projects that I have going on. 2 years ago, my main focus was the trailer music school. And writing trailer music. The focus is still very much the same, though. The process is the same. If I have writing to do, the writing will go first. So I'll just bash out the writing. I usually write between an hour to an hour and a half. So at the moment, I'm doing some string quartet writing for Elephant. So I spent sort of an hour each morning sketching the tracks out. And once you get into Dave's kids, once you get into the groove of it, you can just write more quickly. So in the last couple of days, I managed to sort of do 2 tracks within the hour because you got to get into the groove of it. So that's now sent off to the string player to record all the parts. One man recording all 4 string parts, and he's a machine. It's called Strings Now. Yeah, his timing and tuning are machine-like. Having hired so many string players over my career, I understand how much of a gem it is when you have someone that plays in tune and in time when they're small ensembles. Like especially solo players, you can get the best solo player, but put them on their own without a reference, it's a different thing. But yeah, he's an absolute machine. So I have that writing going on, and then I just schedule all the other tasks, usually batching everything. So like Monday is my creative day, when I do the piano tracks, when I do my illustrations, all the other stuff. Monday is my creative day, and the main reason it's creative day is because all of the kids are out of the house. So me and my wife have I don't say a full day, we have 10 till 2, which feels like a full day, without any kids in the house. The other days it's writing and then meetings and the boring stuff like emails, which I still do not like doing. Emails, you think you send an email and go, done. I'm never going to have to respond to another email like, oh, they've replied. Damn it. And then all of a sudden, all of those 5 people you email have replied within the time of you replying to the last. Yeah, it's outrageous. So I try not to spend too much time in email, but it does manage to suck me away from other work. I think that was kind of a meandering answer to your question, which was... No, my schedule is not the same, but the theories behind it are still the same.
Anna has a follow-up question, which is what do you use for distributing your albums to Spotify, etc.?
Yeah, I can't say I've done the biggest amount of research on it. I just made sure that the distributor I was using was not taking a cut. And it came down to a few, but I chose Ditto Music. It's like a membership. Basically, you pay annually for a certain amount of albums, or actually not even albums, artists. So I've got 5 artists, and I think I'm only paying about 50. Don't quote me on this, but like 50 or 60 pounds a year. For a lot of my friends have used CD Baby, but with CD Baby you pay like an upfront fee per album, and given how many albums I like to release, that would rack up quite a lot of money. So, for instance, I think it's like £50 per album. Well, it used to be anyway. So yeah, Ditto Music is the one I use. Yeah, that's it. Thanks, Espen.
Yeah, I use the same one, and I pay, I think it's £30 per year, and that's for 2 artists. And I think, I'm not sure, but I think it's £70, and then you get the 5 artists.
Okay, there we go. 70 quid. Oh, yeah, it's probably 67 year. Or 69. Yeah,
something like that.
Which is, to be honest, it's a bargain because for instance, my Richard Prynne, which is my solo piano stuff, we're releasing an album a month, so 12 albums. Even that in itself is pretty cool. Getting that for £70, and then when you think about all the other stuff, the only difficult issue with that is then actually making money from streaming, which you can do. And I have said that in my newsletter when one of my ambient tracks that got picked up by an Apple Music playlist, and that brought in 10 grand, it's got about 2 million streams, I think. And yeah, which was out of nowhere. I did nothing. I just pressed distribute or whatever it is. I just sent it to Ditto Music, and that was all I did. I didn't put it on social media. I didn't do anything. So yeah, it's much like, streaming kind of reminds me of being a trailer music composer. When you write and you pitch, you often pitch for free. If you're very lucky, you'll get demo fees, but you're just constantly sort of putting music out there in the hope that one will be picked. So if you approach streaming in a similar way, you just don't know what's going to happen. There are other ways to go about it, and lots of people have made quite a lot of money and a lot of successes through clever tricks, like getting themselves into playlists, approaching playlisters, etc., etc., etc. But it's all a lot of work, and I can't be bothered. So I would much rather do the thing that's fun, which is writing music, and then send it. I'm just going to jump on this. Toppy, my friend makes $100,000 a year only in Spotify. Does some epic music, piano music and stuff. Has something like 1,000 songs there, though. See, that's what I'm talking about. That is a very good example, Toppy. Thank you. In actual fact, one of the composers that writes for Elephant, he earns quite, I'm not going to say it because he might be listening, and especially if this is going out on the podcast, he earns quite a good living from YouTube royalties. Something similar to that. But the thing is, if you just do it consistently, the idea of the long tail catches up. Having a quantity spreading out over a large amount of time, it's very, very overlooked. So many people go for the hit, and this is how I think I did so well with my trailer music. I just wrote a huge amount of music really quickly. So my music was everywhere all at the same time. And because it was on so many different albums, it was being pitched for so many different things. Espen, next question.
Yeah, this is from Minko again. What did you learn in the process of setting up Protege? Did you get any new insights?
You might need to elaborate on that. What type of insights do you mean?
I'm going to unmute Minko and...
Oh, he's going on the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Don't make me more nervous than I'm already. Hi, everybody. Hello, world. The thing is, you approached trailer music school and music writing in a certain way before. And now you've met a lot of proteges. and you set that up, and I think you reviewed with your team a lot of trailer music entries and pitches. So I thought maybe you've picked something up that you think, oh, that I will change in my own writing, or maybe I will pitch even sooner to a publisher, or maybe I'd use my words differently. Stuff that can help us also. Help us also.
Okay. That's that. With the elaboration, great question. The really interesting thing about having now reviewed hundreds of tracks, hundreds and hundreds of tracks, and having worked with so many other composers, I don't want to sound like an egotist here, but what it's done is it's reaffirmed the things I have been saying. And it's really nice for me to see this. Not that I've been teaching everyone wrong. It's like, actually, I have been giving solid advice. Because, from a composer's point of view, I was trying to kind of establish what it was that was making my work successful. Now, from a publisher point of view, I can see those things still align. And, one thing that's often overlooked is just being a nice person to work with. Like, so often people overlook you're dealing with people first. If you're a really nice guy and not a great composer, you're probably going to win out over the great composer who's a bit of a bellend. So being nice is so important, because also everyone talks to each other. Oh, wait, you're dealing with that guy? Don't deal with him. He's not particularly nice. Or, oh, no, she's a bit mean. We talk. Everyone talks. So being nice is so important. And I'm not talking like being insipid or, overly sweet and, just being polite. I'm going to call Shane up here. Shane got on my radar early because he has incredible good manners. And he's just super nice to work with. So Shane works with us. It's just those things that are really key. Like Shane, Shane's unmuted himself. So Shane, can you tell everyone how the first thing you did that enabled you to come and start working with us at not just the training music school?
It's hard to remember. I think it was just a simple email. Oh, I know what it was. The first time I ever sent anything to you was you had opened up the thing for anyone to submit tracks. You'd put a brief out there and you were going to put together a bunch of student tracks. We were going to all audition or whatever, and you made an album out of them. Now, mine didn't make it, but you did take the time to give me a bunch of feedback on it. So I just wrote back saying thanks, because it was really great feedback and I appreciated it. And then from time to time, things would come up at the Trailer Music School, and I would answer a question or something. And I think at some point you asked me something, and it just kind of grew from there.
Yeah. That is exactly right. There was one point though. Shane emailed me once just saying, "Oh, by the way, I have a certain set of skills. Not like Taken." He was like, "I used to, produce podcasts.
That's right.
I'm happy to help out on your podcast if you need it." And at the time, I was like, "Hells yeah!" And
yeah.
And I was so grateful for the work. And then through that process of Shane offering him his services, he then got on board. And Espen was a similar thing. Espen emailed me being like, "Oh, would you like me to help out on anything?" And again, hells yeah! The problem with having so much work to do and so many things going on is actually when people offer your help, it's so important to say yes. And especially if they offer it in a nice, polite way and are nice and easy to work with. Obviously, it's I'm not saying that start emailing me saying, "Can I help out?" and I'm going to give everyone work. Please don't do that, because as I said, I will schedule send and you'll get an email next year. What I'm trying to say is being nice is so important, because the other thing about Proche is we can make you better composers and you will be better composers, but it's harder to kind of make you start, say to you, "Actually, you're not being very nice. Can you buck up your ideas and be polite?" It's hard for us to call you out on that. We will do if you're being outrageous, but Yeah, I'm making it sound like there's lots of people who have been outrageous. There haven't been. It's just really highlighted to me that the ones who've stood out have been super nice, and I've been like, yeah, I like these guys or girls.
We have a little follow-up on that.
Oh, yeah.
From Tim, it's is there one common mistake you see over and over?
In a personable way or in a compositional sort of professional way?
I guess in relations to what you were talking about.
Sorry, Tim.
I guess personable.
Yes. Diva-like behavior. I mean, there's quite a few ways this manifests, and I saw this in my way up as a composer when other composers would demand things or forget their role in the business. As a composer, as a trailer music composer, we are delivering a service. We are not artists that are being brought on board for our prestige and huge following. We are providing a professional service. So when you're dealing with clients, you do what the client asks. You do it with a certain amount of professional knowledge. But if a client says to you, take this out, it's not working, don't then say, oh, I disagree. I think it is working very much. It works, it functions in all the right ways. That's one example. Another example would be like demanding feedback to be happening on a certain time, a certain day, just demanding basically, and not saying, hey, I know you're super busy. I just want to check in to see how things are. Is there any update on my tracks? Just being like, hey, when am I going to hear back about this? It's just understanding the way you phrase things, especially in emails. This is why I use emojis a lot, because writing in emails can be so easily misconstrued. So hence, smiley face. I'm not suggesting you should use emojis. Most people call me unprofessional for doing that, but I think it softens the mood. If I could, I would communicate almost entirely with GIFs, but I don't think they'd like that. Just to kind of elaborate on that. Sorry, Espen, they've got me talking now. The other thing to elaborate on is the importance of creating a character in your track. It's quite hard to distinguish. And what I mean by that is you hear the music and something grabs you immediately. All of the tracks I've liked from Protégé and other composers prior to that, they have grabbed me within the first few seconds. Even if it flops in Act 3, or even if Act 2 dips too much, it doesn't matter. They've got something. And that's really hard to understand and to grasp. It's not something I can say, do this, this, and this, and this. One of the things I often say to you is people don't use reverb enough. An interesting sound used in a reverberating space cleverly can become a super interesting sound. Because I just recorded a podcast episode with Kieran and Cody, and we were talking about this. That's Kieran Birch and Cody Steele. We were talking about how we're all dealing with the same samples almost all the time. So how do you put your own stamp on that? One of my ways is to play badly over the top with a cello. Yeah, that's one of my ways to do it. Other people have other ways of doing it, But if you can grab us very, very soon, within the first few minutes, then that's really important. If you can do that, then that would be ace.
In the hybrid course, I watched in horror the main bus clipping and clipping. Are you still fixing everything in the mix? I've noticed that when I write fast and I'm not bothered with too much of the production side, I've had to spend a large amount of time on the delivery getting it right. Also because the mix is approved as I did it and I just want to master it. I've set up a system for it now, but it still takes time. Did you change this since recording the hybrid course?
Nope. No. Part of my thing with teaching is the writing matters more. Because at the end of the day, if you can write a great track and it's mixed poorly, someone can fix it. Whether it's you or not. For me, Toby Mason fixes it for me. which is, ever so grateful for him because I give him a lot of mud. And I don't really worry about the master bus clipping. I know Cody still was very upset to hear that. But I don't really worry about it because I don't see myself as a mixing or mastering engineer at all. I used to try to approach it like that when I was expected to do the whole thing. But now I'm not expected. I feel so incredibly free. This is why Vic and I decided with Protege, with Blue Pearl, to not make the composers do any of the mixing or mastering. There is a certain extent of mixing with everything you do anyway, because of the way you place the notes, because of the rhythms, because of the placements left and right. There is mixing going on, but we're not dealing with surgical mixing. So we're not talking about like dealing with the mud in the sort of the mid-low region. We're not talking about making sure the sub is present enough throughout the track. And we're not talking about giving it air and sparkle. I so think it's very important for composers to remind themselves that we are composers first, I think. Especially as trailer music composers. Again, the same thing, you can't polish a turd, can you? If the track's written badly but produced brilliantly, it's just a bad track that's produced well. Whereas, and I've said this before, I've had demos placed on trailers. I haven't mixed them. They probably were clipping, Minko. But the writing was there. The writing was solid. So that's why Vic and I have tried to go, let's yes, 15 decibels over. Damn it, should have got to 16. That's why Vic and I have tried to kind of relieve that from you, because he's noticed that as well. Because also there is a tendency for composers to worry about the mix, worry about the master, and to try and step in at that stage. For me, it's like, here you go, see ya, on to the next album. I very rarely hear the mastered tracks. And if I do, it's only when Elephant Music sends out their little previews. And when I do, I go, yeah, that sounds so much better. Sometimes Toby has done things that I wouldn't have expected. Like there was one, he'd kind of like distorted one of the samples I had used. And it wasn't necessarily what I would have done, but he knows what he's doing. And it sounded great. So it's a bit of like relinquishing that type of thing.
We have a question here from Gavin. I am doing Richard's piano courses and I'm hoping to specialize in piano trailer music. Am I limiting myself too much? Do we all have to do the OTT big epic genre? I would rather like to be really good at piano trailer music, but maybe there's not enough demand.
Piano trailer music is such an enormous niche, even within itself, because you're not just dealing with, oh, that's a piano track. You're dealing with period drama tracks. You're dealing with sound beds. You're dealing with uplifting piano ads. And also piano stuff goes into adverts so beautifully. And also, I think the idea of niching down is very overlooked. Me and Vic launched Elephant Music with 5 solo piano albums. So I launched into the trailer music world as a piano player. In fact, so much so that when I interviewed Jeff Feynman from Immediate Music, who I've worked with before, we were on Zoom like this, and he looked at the back wall and he said, "Oh wait, why have you got all those guitars on the wall?" I said, "Because I'm a guitarist, Jeff." And he said, "What? I thought you played piano." I said, "Well, I do, but I'm a guitarist." So, I have them there, but I think niching down is a really good skill, because actually what it can do is teach you the same things. And this is the other one lesson I learned from Protege, is that it's the same things in every genre. Getting character, creating the right amount of build and tension. These things throughout are just across the board. Piano, organic sound design, hip hop, it's all there. So if you can teach yourself those same things, that's what the piano music course was for in the training music school, was to kind of say, actually, this idea of patterns changing throughout a track can be used in pretty much every genre. And that's how I write everything. That's how I would approach a chill step track. That's how I'd approach epic orchestral. That's how I'd approach string quartets. That's how I'd approach piano. That's how I approach playing guitar. I mean, it's very mathematical, and that's why we get such a lovely correlation of mathematicians and musicians, because there's something beautiful about the correlation of patterns in music. And as trailer composers, we are building. We are very rarely lying flat and sitting on a loop. We are building constantly, whether that's at a rate of knots or whether that's subtly.
Let's go to the next one. It's from Dave. He's asking, he's heard from a few sources that composers' royalties from streaming services like Netflix and Amazon are declining to the point that we can only really count on the upfront fee. Just wondering what your thoughts and experiences are with this, or if it's not affecting the trailer world as much.
Yeah, Dave, the trailer world is almost all about the upfront fee. The way trailers work is they give you a big upfront fee because you're not going to see much of a back end. TV, on the other hand, you don't see much up front because you're going to see it later on. I wouldn't worry about it too much, Dave, because the world is always changing. Do you remember how much everyone was like terrified that Napster was ruining the music business? When I say everyone, basically the big record labels. Oh, the music business is ruined. No one could have foreseen that somebody in their bedroom could so easily distribute an album across the world, and that could then be streamed by potentially millions and millions of people. Not that they are, because the competition's so high, but the opportunity is there. And I think that's, it's good to think about the positives. The upfront fees are fantastic. And if you're clever with your money, those upfront fees are essentially royalties squashed together. You still get royalties because your trailer music will get put on ads, will get put on TV. It will happen. I still get royalties, but the upfront fees are so good. So I don't tend to worry about it too much. Having come from a world where it was more about royalties, the concern with that is that because the upfront fee is so bad, you then have to wait for a year, at least 6 months to a year, to see any royalties. So you then have this pay gap where you've got a little fee at the front, and then you have to wait for the big money to come in. So what do you do in that? What do you do? You kind of keep working within that gap so that eventually the royalty gap disappears. But that is the other end of that spectrum. But honestly, Dave, I don't concern myself with that stuff too much. It may be happening, but my experience of it is that I still focus on the wonderful thing about trailing music, which is the big upfront fees.
From Michael, maybe I can unmute him and you can ask.
I mean, my example is like, say you can churn out a lot of tracks really fast, but it takes a lot of time to create something great. Can it be a good strategy to write across like a spectrum of quality, like some good quality, some great quality? Is it good to both like try and submit a large amount of tracks to lower paying libraries as well?
I'm going to jump in straight away.
Cool.
Straight away. So much was revealed when you said it takes a lot of time to make something of good quality. That is the downfall. That's a perfectionist speaking. Am I right, Mike? There is no correlation between time and quality. There is no correlation. Some of my greatest ideas just came out almost immediately. Some of my worst, I stewed over for days and days. Because the thing that you need to understand about time is because there are so many variables within a set amount of time. Say you have an entire day to write. How tired are you? How emotional are you? What's going on in your life? Is there any stress? do you have all the tools and the workflow appropriate for your writing at that point? Do you have a clear goal in mind? So I really didn't want to cut you short, but that little sentence, joining time and quality, like you need to erase that. Imagine a big electric violet rubber and erase that from your mind, Mike, because you can produce great work very, very quickly. Everybody can. But what happens is this: we all have this little voice in our head, which is trained from our parents and our parents' parents and whatnot. Well, no, you can't do good stuff quickly. That's cheating. It's like, what? You can't earn a lot of money just working a couple of hours a week. That's cheating. We've all got so many limiting beliefs about time and money. And, because of what I do, I've had to kind of face those limiting beliefs quite regularly. So it would do you, if you worry too much about the correlation of time and quality, it would do you to practice writing fast. I guarantee if you sat down for 10 minutes for 10 days straight, each of those 10 minutes just produced an idea, and then you pushed those aside and listened to them 1 month later, you would see the beauty of those ideas. It does depend on the output, because a full-on epic orchestral trailer track will take more time just because there are so many more moving parts. A solo piano piece, how long does it take to play? Yeah, exactly. Bing, bong, bing, done. Also, actually, you should listen to Arvo Pärt. He came up with this whole thing called tintinnabulation, which is basically putting it in a really a terribly worded nutshell. He wanted to celebrate the beauty of the major and minor triads, specifically the major triads. So you listen to his track, which I can't remember the name of. Somebody put it in the chat. It's that really famous one with a piano and a violin. It's just a couple of arpeggios on the piano and just a few beautifully played notes. And it is one of the most striking pieces of music. I guarantee if you had sat down, or I had sat down and played that on the piano, I would have gone, this feels like a child is playing the piano. Because we do have a correlation between simplicity and quality as well. It can't be too simple. We've got to show off all the knowledge we have in as much time as possible. We need to make sure people understand that I know jazz chords. There's so much. We've got so many chips on our shoulders about this stuff. I'm sorry if I'm going on off of one, Mike, but I really do believe strongly that I can say safely that all of you are very, very talented people. I have worked with all of you. And I can hear when you're worrying about your work, and there is at no point that you should be. And I can speak for you specifically, Mike. Your work is brilliant. Stop worrying about it. Let it out, okay? You have a gift, share it. The negative voice is just ruining the fun. Okay, so Espen, can you remind us what the brief is? So we're going to move into, after that kind of serious note, we're going to move into some music now. So you guys got your monthly brief. So Espen, do you want to give us a rundown of what the brief was, and then we're going to jump into some tracks?
Yeah, it was basically just big epic orchestral without all the hybrid elements, not emotional or uplifting, but more towards the action adventure side. We're going to start with Brigida.
Yeah, I loved that. I love your writing anyway, Bridget. The thing that was really nice for me for this one was the element of Clint Mansell at the start. Big fan of Clint Mansell. He's got a really nice way with simple writing. And also the thing that carried through with this, Bridget, was when you were playing the melody in the piano, in the strings, and in the was it brass at the back end? My ears were deafened by the stereo. In the brass, you would land on unusual notes, which sounded great. It was really jarring and unusual, and I really, really enjoyed that. There were a couple of elements, points throughout the track where the percussion was a bit out of time. It was when you were going from the piano to the next section. It was like it almost sounded like a late flam or an early flam. Just have a listen. That might have been my ears. I could probably have quite often gone, yeah, approved. There's a few things with the mix I probably would have liked. There was a section halfway through Act 2 where you brought the drums got bigger and louder, like da, 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 and then they sat back down. What I would have done was, rather than sitting them back down, kept them up a little bit. Maybe not brought them up so much, but kept them up a little bit. But that's me being really picky. It had all the right elements. Perhaps we could say at the very, very last half of the third act, we could have the strings, because all the way through Acts 2 and 3, it had this dun 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 dun. What would happen if, to increase the tension, double time, just to kind of give us that sense of progression? Or perhaps, you keep the dung 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 dung, and then you give the other strings a descending line that kind of parries against that ascending. But they're just all preferences. Like, I really, really enjoyed that. I think it sounded really nice. And it reminded me, like, I can imagine dirty knights fighting to this. Awesome work. I feel like all of my notes are going to be positive. You guys are just so good these days, I'll just be like, yeah, great, next.
This is Her Journey by Dave Graham.
Wow. Lovely track. Lovely track. I'm going to jump straight in and say it's off brief. That, for me, with the exception of that third act after the pause, was largely score writing. Beautiful score writing, because the reason it was off brief for this is because we're going for trailers, and we don't ebb and flow that much in trailers. Yes, we have dramatic stop downs, but we normally sort of build up to those and drop. And we only use those really as a way to emphasize the next section, so that the next section feels louder, even though it probably isn't. It's just the silence makes it feel louder. So up until the drop, beautiful as it was, and there was one section I thought, oh, this could be a really nice intro for a new piece. There was a section where it's like the piano was like, and I thought, oh, this is great. But then it meandered off somewhere else. So that first section, Dave, beautiful. Save it for another brief. Always save your ideas, guys. Even if they get sent away from someone else, always save them, because everything you do is gold. It's just you're giving it to the gold seller at the wrong time. So move it away. That section after the drop, however, that is beautiful. Can we just hear that section again, please, Espen? Gavin, I'm glad Gavin picked it up. Listen to the horns. Stop it there, because then again he went into a kind of ebb and flow section. That bit there, Dave, take that section and make that your act 2 of a family adventure trailer cue, because that is beautiful writing, and it has the build, and it has half of us, those of you listening on the podcast won't know this, but half of us were sort of nodding our heads going, yeah, rockin'. Because it had the right feeling. You can imagine Lancelot galloping on his horse, or Cinderella running along with her glass slippers. It was just beautiful. Add a solo female voice on top. I'm not going to sing now because I'll sound like a dying monkey, but I'd like you guys to imagine a solo voice over the top of that. Just going, just doing ahs, and then that is a beautiful track.
Mark Elba, Together We Rise.
Mark, that was pretty much textbook structurally. Textbook, you set the mood in Act 1, you built us up nicely, then you took us to a climax and again, and then you dropped us in that right at the end. Perfect. Structurally, spot on. Loved the samples you chose. Really nice. Loved the build. So my only question to you was: there's some drums, the big heavy-handed snares you're using, the big heavy-handed hits, where it's like the big trailer ones, right? Those ones. They feel a little out of place with the rest of the orchestra. They feel like we could maybe soften those down. Either so, I don't know how many layers that is, or whether that's one-shot samples. I would take the kind of the harsh snare sound on it. I would separate that and put that into a bit more reverb, drop it in the mix. Then, depending on what we have left, we want to maybe like a warmer sounding, not a tom sound per se, somewhere between a tom and a taiko, because you've got this lovely kind of like orchestral setting. We're not going full on hybrid, and those drums, if we put more synths in this track, those drums would be perfect because they'd kind of marry beautifully with the grittiness of the synths. So it's just a case of finding a slightly better, or at least kind of mixing that existing hit sound in, or perhaps even saving those ones until the last act, and then earlier on bringing them down and doing the thing I've suggested, because that's a great cue. Well done, sir.
We're going to go with Topi. It's a really great track.
I couldn't have put it better myself when Mike said, "This is the business."
Toppy, I doff my metaphorical hat to you, sir. That was a fantastic track. Brilliant structure, brilliant mix. And the nice thing is, it was simple. It was simple. You know, Act 1 starts. I loved how you teased in the string arpeggios in the first act, where it's like all this kind of like awkward, kind of almost like dystopian strings going on, and then it was like, you know, it gets you excited, and then it drops, and then it leads us into this like simple line, which we're going, and then you add in a second layer on top. It's so simple, but so few people remember how to do that, and you've done that so beautiful. Also, the other thing is, you know, I also loved the kind of earthquake sound you used as your hit. You know, this kind of like a huge boulder, almost like a mountain has collapsed in the distance. Most people wouldn't use sound effects like that. You know, I don't know whether that's the hit or you have actually got a sound effect of a mountain falling. But I loved it because of the nature of that sound. There wasn't a lot of high-end information. It was mostly mid-low information. So when you brought in your whoosh hit with all of the high-end information, it suddenly became a lot brighter. And that contrast, this is why we do stop downs, again, it's for the contrast, was brilliant. And then you brought us into Act 3, the big brass coming in there. And all I could really hear was brass holding sustains, strings doing the pattern, and the choir. I mean, really, you don't really need a lot more than that in this type of setting. And then you lead us and you go, okay, well, how is he going to make this any bigger? And you double timed. Yes. Again, textbook. Not sure what to do? Double time. Not sure what to do? Increase the tempo. You know, there's these little tools, and you did them all in that. And then again, the classic, I call it the Kieran Birch, where you're like, okay, I'm spent. I can't hear anymore. And then there's one more slap in the face right at the end. You know, for the end credits, when you see the superhero carrying the earth on his shoulders. Yeah. Signed off. Tick. Great work, sir. In fact, actually, that was a great one to end on. Have a nice evening or day, wherever you are. And I will see you guys next month.
Hey guys, it's me doing a little outro here. Just wanted to say thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this, and I really hope you enjoyed that group call. You know, the questions I answered, and hearing the tracks that were produced, and you know, it's interesting to see what you were thinking about the tracks that were being played. You know, admittedly, we had some interesting effects, although actually I think the tracks have been replaced for the podcast, but you know, it was going through mono because of Zoom, and then we switched it to stereo midway through one of the tracks, which made for some actually quite interesting listening. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got a lot out of it, and I really do appreciate you taking the time to listen to this, because you know, without the positive feedback that you guys are getting, and you know, and giving me, it doesn't make it quite so much worthwhile, because you know, otherwise it's just me talking, in this case, on my phone. But yeah, I really do appreciate you guys listening to the podcast, and I really do hope genuinely that you're getting stuff out of it. You know, I'm not just here to kind of sell my courses, although I do want to sell my courses because I put a lot of time and effort into them. I'm also here to give you guys value and be of service, and that's what we are here in the form of the Trailer Music School to help. You know, that sounds like some kind of really cheesy marketing. Damn it, I've done it again. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking. Have a nice week, guys, and I'll see you next week.